Hi, welcome to Money Talks, the Journal Times online business show. I'm business reporter Michael Burke, and no, you're not imagining it. This is not the Journal Times studio. We are actually at Racine Cyclery today in Racine on the corner of Washington Avenue and Ohio Street, and with me is the owner of Racine Cyclery, Perry Oksuita. Did I pronounce your name right?
Yes, you did.
It is Perry.
Yes.
Okay. The reason we came to Racine Cyclery today, well, a couple of reasons, actually. We're going to talk about the biking industry, what's new and interesting, and also the issue of bricks and mortar retailers versus online sellers. But we're actually, by complete coincidence, today there's a race going on. This is July 17th, 2012, and there's a race going on that you're kind of involved in. What's that?
Yes, we have a sponsorship for the, it's an ICC series of races. It goes all day long down at North Beach, actually. The route is on Michigan Boulevard, down Hufford Drive.
It's the one that had been downtown for the last few years.
Correct, yes. Mm-hmm.
And this year?
And it has been moved to the North Beach area. We're seeing a lot of high-end racing going on. This is called the Criterium, where they have a closed course, and there's a lot of exciting turns and
that was fun to watch when it was downtown. It was a lot of fun to watch because
Yeah.
they ride in packs of 4, right?
Oh, there's sometimes the packs are bigger. It just depends how the race evolves. But, they go at speeds of upwards of 30 miles an hour, and they're going all out. And these are some serious races.
So if people catch this in time, they can actually check it out. It goes till, what, about 7 or 8 tonight?
7 or 8, yeah. Whenever the last the Category 1 pros.
And the best racers go last. So
Yes,
if you go later,
yes.
if you go after work, you'll see the best racing,
Absolutely.
the fastest racing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Perry, let's talk first of all about your industry, the biking industry. What's new? Well, as an industry, before we talk about like ridership and technology and things like that, as an industry, how is it doing? How are the bike sellers doing? And what's new or evolving in manufacturing and in selling of bikes?
Well, that's a loaded question, I guess. The bike industry for the last few years domestically has been somewhat flat, although the participation is very good among adults. We're seeing every year that we are in this business, something different is occurring, and some of it's the culture, and some of it is where biking fits in. It's number 5 among all active adults in their list of activities. So it's up there with, I think there's over 45 million participants in cycling. So
Wow.
that goes up and down. But today the world of bikes is, there's plenty of choice. Bikes are built better. They fit the rider better. They fit their needs. There's more product out there today than there ever was. So
Yeah.
it's exciting.
Home in a little bit more on the ridership. Where are you seeing good, strong ridership and bike sales, and where is it weaker than it might have been in the past?
Okay. Actually, the growth, if anything, in one area is the competitive cyclist. Triathlons are doing very well. People just getting into it with a new road bike, for example, and I would say women dominate almost in that area, in the growth area. That we're seeing women anywhere from 30s to 50s getting involved in triathlons. Maybe it's for whatever reason, it's their kids are out of the house or whatever, but we're seeing more participation among women, and just competitive cycling is on the upswing, as is recreational adult cycling. That too is growing because of I think it's the comfort nature of bikes now. People have memories of being very uncomfortable on their bike and they never got back to it, but now the word is out that there are some very comfortable bikes to ride and people are enjoying it more. The weak area, and I hate to say it, but it's among children. And when you think years ago that was our main audience, at this time,
when I was a kid, everyone had a bike, but you never saw an adult ride.
Right, and that's exactly the case. When my dad, who started this business, got into it, he said, the only adults you'd see were those who had lost their license for one misfortune or another, or they were disabled in some way, shape, or form and couldn't drive a car. But and that goes to the nature of cycling in America versus maybe Europe, where a bike is a little more revered as a means of transportation. It's getting there in this country, but it's a battle against.
Why is it dropping off in children? Because I see kids all the time on these really small wheeled bikes just buzzing around on sidewalks, and I know there's the BMX craze, with the tricks and stuff like that. I would have thought that kids would be a fairly strong category.
I wish it were the case. I mean, our juvenile line is, we're seeing what we notice anyway, is children are learning later to ride two wheels, and their first bike or two-wheel experience is coming at ages 6, 7, and 8, when years ago it was 2, 3, and 4. And that's when I say there's a cultural change, I think it has a lot to do with how kids are brought up and where the bike actually fits in their wants and needs.
What about tricycles? That was always the way a kid started. You started on the little tiny tricycle when you were a little tiny kid, and then eventually you took the big leap to a two-wheeler, or a two-wheeler with training wheels. Actually, was usually the next step.
It's changed a little bit now with the again, we go to Europe, and what their first bike is actually a bike without pedals, and that's something. It's actually in our window right across from us here. But those little bikes, they teach one how to coast, and they learn to coast before they learn to pedal a bike. And we're starting to get that here, but it's a slow growth again. We have some habits are hard to change, but getting back to kids, I think kids today don't have the bike on their primary list of wants or needs. They're well into electronics at a very early age, and that sort of inhibits even the desire to go out and actually be active. And we're seeing it in the childhood obesity rates.
Of course, if
nobody rides a bike to school anymore for fear itself, I guess, of traffic and everything.
And of course, if a kid becomes obese early in life, he or she is probably less likely to get on a bike, right?
Yes, indeed. We're seeing that as well. And it's as you know, as you get older, it's harder to shed those unnecessary pounds. But people are trying. I think that's where adults, are waking up to it, and hopefully it'll eventually translate to the kids as well.
You mentioned a bike without pedals as a possible first bike, and I'd never heard of that. Let's talk some more about the technology of bikes and what's evolving or changing over the years. One thing that you can't fail to notice if you're out and about are the recumbent bikes.
Right.
The ones recumbent meaning, I guess, reclining, right?
Exactly.
Where you're sitting back and your feet are out in front of you.
Correct.
How are those doing, and what's happening with recumbent bikes?
It is one of the growth areas, even though it's a very low volume, meaning we don't sell nearly as many as we do the upright bike. It's one of the categories that's got people back on a bike and pedaling. The comfort issue is huge. Again, people's memories are long term when they think of how uncomfortable they were on their last bike. So we get people that say, "I haven't been on a bike in 20 years. What have you got?" Well, here's one that fits like a chair, and all you do is push your feet out front of you and steer it, and you're off, and you're riding in comfort basically.
I know one thing that would have to avoid. A thing that I get is the pain down the middle of my back when I'm biking for any stretch of time. I don't know if other people get that.
At some point, I think any bike, and I'll even include recumbents, if you're on it for more than an hour, something will start to tell you that, hey, this isn't right, or I address it. Your pain might be just due to ill-fitting bike or your riding position. That happens very frequently, and that too doesn't just stay the same throughout your life. If you've ridden the same bike the same way, well, your body changes sometimes, and you have to make adjustments, whether it be in the position, the equipment, a different saddle, different handlebar, different bike.
Well, let's stay with recumbents for a moment. What are the advantages of each type of bike, the recumbent versus the standard kind of a bike? When would you when is a recumbent great to have, and when would you want the other type?
Well, from a riding standpoint, just flat riding and you want maximum comfort, there's your recumbent rider. If you want to go fast, longer distance, you better get in a more efficient riding position, meaning to cut through the wind and use your body weight to your advantage. On a hill, the recumbents really tell their weakness right there. You must gear way down, and you're just going to creep up a hill, where someone on an ordinary bike could stand on the pedals and what we call maybe grind up the hill or just hammer up the hill. They can't do that on a recumbent. You just have to gear down and bear with it. So, yeah, we don't sell one against the other. The need for the recumbent comes from the user. They either immediately recognize comfort is it, and this is all I'm going to do is ride on the bike path, for example. And there's plenty of those around now.
Yeah.
They're happier than heck to get on a bike and be active where they couldn't ride an upright bike for one reason or another.
What about a 2 versus a 3-wheel recumbent? Because, as you pointed out, 3 wheels have come along now.
Yes, they have, and that constitutes the biggest sales of our recumbent sales is 3-wheel recumbents, and it is that rider who needs it for whether it's balance issues due to some disability or just age or whatever. 3-wheel, they ride nice, and you can go some distance on them and generate speed with them. There's very few disadvantages other than their bulk, when storing or transporting or whatever. That's somewhat of a challenge, but like I said, it's that or nothing for many people that they couldn't get on a...
And they're easier to balance on, obviously,
Well,
and easier to ride than
exactly.
Because
yes.
Is a 2-wheel recumbent a little tricky to learn?
Absolutely, yeah. They require... actually forgetting, I think, a lot about what you remembered as riding a bicycle. The balance point is different, your perspective is different, you're lower to the ground. There's a lot to get familiar with, but given time, the recumbent bike, a 2-wheel bike, is a lot of fun.
Yeah. I'm curious what you would say about the bike friendliness or lack of bike friendliness of the Racine area, because I've done some biking to and from work only once this summer because of the heat. I don't like to arrive at work soggy, but there are motorist attitudes to figure into that question, and then there are also bike trails, and the Racine area has actually developed some nice bike trails over the last decade or something like that.
It's great to see, because we're a little behind, but we're catching up fast as far as that end of biking and the community go together. As far as the motorists and the cyclists, Racine's no different, I think, than any other community. There are some that address the coexistence of the two, and better than Racine does. And I used Madison as an example. They really appeal to cyclists, but the community there is different too. I mean, a college town where there's a lot of people that depend on a bike for transportation. Again, Racine is still, I won't say backwards thinking, but thinking of the bike only as a recreational vehicle. And when you start to use it for transportation, that means you're going to mix with the city streets. And yes, they're not the most friendly. And we recently marked, I think, 1 or 2 streets with a bike lane, which all that is stripe down the road, but it's something to tell the motorist, basically, to allow that bike some room. And or this is for cyclists, and we could use a few more of those. I mean, just an east-west and a north-south, long stretch of road that is marked for cyclists would be a big advantage in Racine, because it's a tough town to get across, even driving. So,
I imagine it's hard to do that retroactively, right? Once you've already got city streets in place and parking lanes. And
although, I mean, we're looking out on Ohio Street here, and to me, that would be a wonderful street to have a bike lane on, and I think it could at least be marked. And maybe I'm sure there's someone going to tell me why it can't be done, but I think that's a great north-south thoroughfare.
It would be, yeah.
And just a start and a suggestion, but.
The other thing I think would add to the bike friendliness would be some kind of ongoing public education campaign. A few billboards telling motorists the roads are for bicyclists as well. Wouldn't that
would
maybe help over time?
Seriously help. Yeah, there's a few organizations in this state actually, and one being the Wisconsin Bike Federation. We just had a recent membership campaign going on where they could join through our dealership here, come into the bike shop and get $10 off. It's actually a $35 a year membership, but they do more for the state, developing laws, bike paths, generating lobbying for cyclists' rights, basically. And that's the Wisconsin Bike Federation. And they do map